look at these charts, Bitcoin is about to eat the world.
Bitcoin are investments of disaster. But Bitcoin is still susceptible to an EMP, electromagnetic pulse.
Where they become massive sellers. If Bitcoin goes up 100% in a month, which we've seen many times in the past, they end up selling 50% of their Bitcoin.
So I like Bitcoin. I'm glad I bit the bullet at 9,000. It was hard because, gold was only about 1,800. So to buy Bitcoin was hard. But I'm glad I have it today. I'm still planning on buying more because I think, Bitcoin's probably going to go to $50,000. Gold's going to go to $15,000 and silver will probably go to $200. And you're going to buy it then? And interest rates keep going down. So in 1974, when I got out of the Marine Corps.
What is the bear case for Bitcoin, and what would have to happen for you to change your mind and sell all your Bitcoin?
Firstly, and obviously, price action. And that's not, Raoul gets scared as the meme, don't scare Raoul. It's like if there is a structural change in the pattern. Here's something I've been thinking about that I don't think anybody's thinking through, right? Come all in, institutional investors, right? We want you in. Okay, but then we've got a problem, is we're going to have to start dealing with month-end rebalances, quarter-end rebalances, where they become massive sellers. If Bitcoin goes up 100% in a month, which we've seen many times in the past, they end up selling 50% of their Bitcoin. Okay, that's suddenly a massive supply change to the market. So maybe the structure of the market changes in a way that doesn't have the risk reward that we're all expecting because we're all a bit backward looking. I look at my price projections from a number of different angles, but maybe the structure of bringing institutions in changes it entirely, in which case the volatility gets massively dampened, the price spikes get dampened, and in which case you don't really outperform, let's say, emerging markets. That's a possibility that's out there that people aren't thinking through. The more liquid a market, the less the volatility, the less the upside. The upside is so big right now because nobody's in it. I would say that if China nationalized the miners or did something completely outside of our expectations before we can diversify the mining pool. I know people are trying to build it off gas flares in Texas and other stuff, which is great. If something happened there where somebody could control it, which I don't believe can happen, but all sorts of things I don't believe can happen. So there's something there would make me concerned. If I thought about what freaked me out in 2017 and why I got out early was people started forking the thing. And we didn't know whether forks were going to work or not. Were they going to take half the liquidity and ruin the whole thing? I didn't know. So I'm out. So something of that kind of nature would make me think. I don't know what that is, but there's a lot of smart people developing a lot of things and who knows what comes along. Obviously, regulation. Should the regulators completely change course? All I see is positive regulation. But if the IMF stood up and said, we've agreed to move to the central bank digital currencies, and as part of that, every member of this basket has banned all cryptocurrencies. And they come with prison sentences, whatever. Yeah, clearly, I'm going to change my mind. Well, I don't know. Will I change my mind? Not change my mind. It kind of makes a better case for Bitcoin. It's difficult. It's difficult, and that makes me nervous when I can't find anything obvious. But my guess is, with a strong, powerful force like this, whatever will stop it is not obvious, which is why I thought maybe just the flows from institutions where, like the hedge fund game when I started was 15% volatility and now it's 6% volatility, and maybe it changes. And then it becomes a different game. If that's the game, then the game is build applications on top as fast as you can. Once the volatility dies down, you can do anything with it because it becomes less of a speculative asset and it becomes an exchangeable asset. It becomes money, basically, more moneyness.
I don't consider Bitcoin, gold, and silver investments. I consider them insurance policies against the idiots running the Fed, the Treasury, and Wall Street. And they're a bunch of criminals as far as I'm concerned, because they're printing trillions of dollars at the same time causing billions of people to go unemployed. Are you nuts? Are you nuts? I mean, I can't, this is like heaven. But I know for people sitting at home, they're going, oh, I've lost my job. I can't pay my mortgage. And I understand, you can't pay the car payments and all this. But the name of this program is the Rich Dad Radio Show, the good news and bad news about money. So if you're sitting at home contemplating your navel saying, well, can I get my cocktailing job back? Or, what restaurant am I going to work for next? I think you missed the biggest opportunity in world history. That's my point of view.
That has been an ongoing narrative. I've been involved in Bitcoin since, 2012. It's been the ongoing narrative of, at the beginning of this, I knew the only answer would be cut all interest rates to zero and probably negative, and then massive stimulus beyond anything which we've ever seen before. So the first phase, I wanted to be involved in Bitcoin, so I bought into the sell-off, added to my positions, and now I'm starting to see the shift towards insolvencies, and the only answer is more from the central banks. So that's why I've started to buy more and more Bitcoin. Technically, the setup's right. Obviously, we had the halving, and just the adoption phase, what's happening with the institutions, it's like the perfect timing. Other people can't take the risks. But for me, I looked at the situation, all outcomes for me were, now it rarely happens. Let's say I'm right, deflation is persistent, the economy is worse than expected, we don't get rid of this whole economic mess until, let's say, Q3 next year. Okay, so the answer to deflation and slow economy is printing of money and more fiscal stimulus. Okay, let's then push that aside and say, no, Raoul's a total idiot, he's completely wrong, the markets are right, inflation is everything. In an inflationary market, well, Bitcoin and gold do well. So here we've got a smile where the least likely outcome, which is everything just returns back to kind of 1.5%, 2% GDP growth, and we all forget it's just happened. That's not going to happen. Simply not going to happen. Maybe it does, but that's the risk that we all run in the Bitcoin position. So basically, inflation, deflation of any sort, if we look at all the past episodes, whether it was 2008, 2012 in Europe, when Europe almost went under, and then periodically afterwards, the central bank kept stimulating, didn't stop. They're not going to stop here. So that to me is a good setup. Okay, so I've now got a good case. So then the case is okay. At that point, I said, right, gold, Bitcoin, those are my main bets. I own some bonds because I'm a deflationist, and I had some dollars and some other trading positions. Okay, fine. So then what changed is the charts. We'd all been looking at it, that the chart of Bitcoin was this beautiful, beautiful wedge pattern, triangle pattern, and it broke. So of course, I'm a macro guy. I can see an opportunity. I can see a great chart. When I see one, I start saying, right, look, we've got to add to this. And, I added obviously into the big sell-off as well, because I saw this pattern emerging. So then it breaks, I start adding. Okay, so now I'm over 50%. Look at these charts. Bitcoin is about to eat the world, right? It looks like it's going to become the super black hole of which it's going to outperform every single asset class on earth. I've never seen this before. Literally, I've never seen it. We've seen gold might be dominant, but you might have bought copper instead, blah, blah, blah. There's nothing, not even most of the Amazon and stuff like that. Looks like it's going to outperform Bitcoin. So that's when I start saying, okay, this is the time to really go for it, because it's a waste of capital to put it into anything else. Now, I'm not coming at this with the philosophy, the Bitcoinization of the world or anything else. I'm coming at here as a macro guy, saying I've never seen a more dominant opportunity in my entire lifetime. And if that is the case, it's time to really back your bet.
And the Bitcoin I bought, thank God I was buying it at 9,000. And today it's worth over $1 million. But the reason for that has nothing to do with gold, silver, or Bitcoin. It has to do with the incompetence of the Federal Reserve Bank, or the corruption of the Federal Reserve Bank, the U.S. Treasury, and Wall Street. So I'm not saying Bitcoin, and people get into what I call pissing matches. Which is better, gold or Bitcoin? Who cares? The question is, how much do you have? That's all that counts right now. Because the reason you buy gold, silver, or Bitcoin is for the same reason. If you trust the US government or the central banks, the Fed, and Wall Street, then save money. But if you don't, then buy gold, silver, and Bitcoin. And the thing I like about Bitcoin is that I can run with it. It's just a number in my head. So when I started looking into Bitcoin, it was already starting to come up, so I started buying it around 9,000. And today, I just count the number of coins I have. That's it.
And then some of those guys went, this Bitcoin thing's interesting. Now, most didn't get it in the beginning. They saw it as a trade. And then everybody saw it, started to see it. Oh my God, there's a parallel universe coming, and it's all going to generate alpha because there's no capital and not enough knowledge in the space, because everybody in it was a technologist and none of these macro guys were in it yet. So the macro guys went, here's an opportunity for us. And one by one, they all started going, have you seen this? You know, if you ask Mark Yusko, if you ask Dan Tapiero, they will say that they really got into this at a global macro investor roundtable of mine. I think it was either in Cayman or in Spain, where one of the other global macro guys, another ex-Goldman hedge fund guy, says, by the way, I started a Bitcoin exchange and you need to find out about Bitcoin. This was 2012. And when we started learning about it from them, and that network then spreads, starts talking about it. So we all kind of got polluted at the same time by similar people. It is a network. And that pollution is, so cut to, I get a phone call on Sunday. One of the, again, I can't mention him, it's one of the most famous hedge fund guys in the world. And one of the greatest traders I've ever seen. And he really made his money in money markets. He's a rates trader, right? He's a world with no interest rates. So, and I've been bugging him about this. I mean, he's been in crypto for a long time. He knows it. But I was bugging him like, there's only one trade that matters. And the conversation on Sunday is, yeah, there's only one trade that matters. So what happens is they come into it for the trade and stay for the future, because we're macro guys. And I say this a lot and people don't really understand. We live in the future. We look at possible futures and try and predict them based on everything from charts to flows to fundamental analysis. And that's why they stay. And that's why they're agnostic to the tribalism. Because what they're saying is, okay, we see this. I don't care whether Bitcoin wins. I know that this whole space is going somewhere and I want to be involved. And then, so I've now got a future framework and I'll trade accordingly. And to come into it with a narrow mindset means that you won't be open to opportunity. Now, maybe the Bitcoin maximists are dead right and Bitcoin outperforms everything. Great. The macro guys will also be on that trend. That's their job, to isolate that trend. It's like otherwise saying, well, I'm a currency trader and, I'll only trade dollar yen. That's ludicrous. Nobody does that. People look for the opportunity. And then, but these guys are bringing real capital into the space too, because they are investing in startups, Again, people philosophically say, well, it's, those speculators, they're just taking advantage of this whole kind of Bitcoin philosophy. No, they're not. They're also feeding capital. They're bringing a lot of capital into businesses that are building on all sorts of networks. Some will fail, some will succeed.
Bitcoin has because of the halving. They're making it harder while the dollar is technically getting softer. But more and more people are, and I think I'm quite sure they'll solve that problem. We'll be able to take a fraction of a Bitcoin and say, here's 1/10 of a Bitcoin. Just buy me a car with it. But that's coming. So the three things that make up money: unit of account or unit of measure, a store of value, and it's exchangeable. But the most important thing is a store of value.